everybody.
Howdy.
Hello.
So, I'm Corey Thompson, co-owner of Above Board TV, co-host of Board Games Insider, author of the interview site Dice Tower Dish. And my interesting fact is New York City used to have a pneumatic postal system that would send through tubes things all over the city. And one of the first packages sent through a tube included a Bible wrapped in an American flag, a copy of the U.S. Constitution, a copy of President McKinley's inaugural speech, and a live cat in 1897.
Did the live cat still live?
He did. They actually had a herd of cats whose job was to catch rats at the post office. There was the New York City cats.
I feel like you're just bragging about a postal service that works as Catholics has just come off strike. And so
I am a huge fan of pneumatic tubes.
Okay. That tracks.
I'm Beneeta Kaur. Can't say I've ever heard of pneumatic tubes until today. I am a board game Twitch streamer and I'm a social media consultant. This is my favorite fact about New York. You are 10 times more likely to be bitten by a New Yorker than a shark. So beware of our special guest if you ever see him in person.
Whoa. It's like, do we have to go like this now every time we're in New York?
I think so.
I'm Daryl Andrews, a freelance board game designer living up in Toronto, Canada, the Great White North. I also do some consulting work for Maestro Media. And I feel like I should move to New York because 1 out of every 21 New Yorkers is a millionaire. I think you just have to live there, right? Compared to 1 out of every 38 Americans live in New York. So do that,
man. Well, as everyone can tell by our intros, welcome to Nerdabout episode 12, New York City. Nerdabout is brought to you by the good folks at Lucky Duck Games. So delivering soon from Lucky Duck and Van Ryder Games is the cooperative occult app-driven adventure The Dark Quarter. And keep an eye out for the Kickstarter gems on Conscious Mind and Andromeda Edge, which are now in the wild and coming to retail through Lucky Duck. And they had a great show at PAX where they sold out of everything. This is a live show about travel, food, culture, and general tomfoolery. We are 3 good friends within the board game industry who, through jauntiness, joyousness, and jocularity, have ended up in some absolutely amazing cities. So, tell me what you've been up to lately, Daryl.
Wow. I still just am always amazed by your word choices.
I know. I love it every time.
I learn new words. Also, I got to give a shout out for my little creep right here, if anyone can notice.
Aww, hi, Lincoln.
Sneaking up in the background. So shout out for Lincoln. I missed PAX Unplugged, but I did get to spend some time working on my ice wine prototype, co-designed with really excited about that. Can't wait to pitch that around to publishers in the near future. And then I was working on a couple top secret prototypes for Maestro Media. Also, fun fact, when you're getting old and becoming an adult, when you get excited about purchasing new pots and pans.
That's a big deal.
Okay, wait. We were talking about this last show about which ones are going to purchase. So which ones did you end up purchasing?
I did not buy the ones you recommended, although they were a close second. I was very
Which ones you get?
I ended up getting Swingly. They're like a knife company.
Yeah.
I found a set called the Forte. It's like a 5-ply Teflon type. It's not Teflon, but it's like a non-stick.
Yeah.
And they're actually made in Italy. And I found out that the Swingly warehouse is like 15 minutes from my house. So I found that they had a Christmas warehouse sale where everything was 70 to 90% off. So I got the set for almost 85% off.
I must be old because I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Is this Swingly with like a Z, like ZW?
Yeah. I like to say Z, but sure.
Sure, we can say Zed. I have Indian parents. I'm comfortable with saying Zed.
So in the past 2 weeks, had a lovely weekend with Peter Adkison, who came to Napa Valley for Wine, Frivolity, and Food. We hit up the French Laundry, which Daryl knows well. Had a fantastic time. And then I've been bouncing back and forth between PAX Unplugged, which was absolutely amazing. I was there for a short period of time, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, but saw so many people and had so many great meetings, and bouncing back and forth to LA. filming all sorts of interesting things with Above Board.
I was also at PAX. Obviously, Daryl, you were missed. Saw so many friends, had so much good food. You know, if you go back and watch our Philly episode, I mentioned that there is a dim sum restaurant that Daryl introduced me to, and since then I've been going every year. So I introduced it to more people, Daryl. So I'm continuing the Namwa legacy.
Spreading the Nerdabout love.
Spreading the Nerdabout love, yes. Either of them had never been, so they were very excited. And yeah, I actually got to play like 2 games at PAX Unplugged, which is like uncalled for. I never play games at conventions, and it was just good. And I'm a little sad that PAX Unplugged is going to be at a different time next year, but that is a whole other conversation.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
So, you know, both Corey and I were at PAX Unplugged. It is a huge geeky event in Philadelphia. Tell us about some geeky events in New York, Daryl.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a nice variety. I mean, personally, my connection when it comes to New York geeky events was particularly the New York Toy Fair and the New York Comic Con. Those are 2 events that I've had the pleasure of attending. Both are over 100,000 people.
They're huge.
They're huge conventions. Take place at the Javits Center. For anyone that's familiar with New York, it's an enormous facility for conventions. The New York Toy Fair started back in 1903, I believe, if I got that right. And their first event featured less than 10 toy companies. And this was a fun fact that Corey found for us. One of the companies was the Lionel Trains, was one of the featured toys, which still today are a real collector's item for train enthusiasts out there. New York Comic Con actually is probably, I believe, the second largest pop culture convention that happens now in the United States. Again, reaching crowds up to 130,000. So they're both, obviously, New York likes to do things big, and they're also very inclusive and very broad. So the New York Toy Fair and the New York Comic Con are kind of must-hit geeky events. And obviously in the city that doesn't sleep, there's also just a ton of geeky sites and stores and places to see. Some of my personal favorites that I hit up, the Complete Strategist, which was started back in the 70s, is a huge board game store that I have paid homage to many times.
It's one of the biggest, yeah.
Yeah, it's crammed. Everything's just like every inch. You know, New York real estate is hard to come by.
Yeah.
Toy Tokyo in New York City has like really cool retro toys, and you can find some games there. Last time I was there with Erica Bayoris, visiting actually Spin Masters headquarters is in New York. There's a ton of game cafes. There's like the Uncommons, which I've been to. I know Hex & Co has multiple locations, but I've been to their Broadway location. Another kind of geeky fun place that I like to go in New York recently is the Nintendo New York store.
Ooh,
it's in Rockefeller Center. You can get some really geeky fun Nintendo-y gifts, you know, especially talking Christmas time. A few other shops that I love to go to. One is the Strand. You got to give a shout out to. It's an independent bookstore that I'm a big fan of, and I've been going kind of almost every trip that I go to New York. I'll pick up a few things. They actually have 18 miles of books.
Wow.
I just love that they it that way. They started in the East Village back in 1927, and it's just kind of like, it's not small.
It's huge. It's gorgeous. It's overwhelming. It's
overwhelming. They got records. They got books. They got games. So I always go to check that out. Talking about records, also on the East Village is A1 Record Shop. There's also the iconic Generations Records, Mercer Street Books and Records, which is in Soho, Academy Records. New York is an iconic place
of records
for record shops, bookshops, indie shops. And so that's one of the favorite things that I like to do. How about you, Beneeta? I know you researched a pretty interesting business that's in New York.
So one of the cool things I want to talk about was the Brooklyn Superhero Supply Company. So it's a a storefront where you can purchase capes, masks, and gadgets, but you're also supporting young writers. So it is actually a front for the front sounds like it's doing something wrong, but it is. But they use front purposely because they want to stick with the superhero vibe. But it's a front for a nonprofit called 826 New York City or NYC. It's a nonprofit dedicated to helping kids develop their creative writing skills. So it's like a really fun way. And if you go to their website or to the store, you can buy merch. You can buy like cool like little like knickknacks, like good stocking stuffers. I saw a onesie where it was like a superhero pigeon. Like, it's adorable, and all the money is going to this nonprofit that's helping promote literature and writing. So that was very cool, and I wanted to point that out.
That's another cool one around there is the Society of Illustrators. It's a historical illustrations museum, one of the few museums dedicated to illustrations in the world. It was originally founded in 1901. It's the oldest nonprofit organization dedicated to the art of illustration in America. And society members just run the gamut. Rube Goldberg was an original society member, N.C. Wyeth, Norman Rockwell, all members of the society. The museum was started in 1981. And it's just a really cool place to look at illustration over the years. I personally love that they have these curated exhibits about comic and cartoon art. That's something that I really enjoy.
Oh, I want to check that out.
It's a cool place.
One thing you can't talk about New York without talking about its like very famous comedy scene. You have everything from like intimate venues to world stage, like huge stages where like comedians got their like first start. You know, you have clubs like the Comedy Club, Gotham Comedy Club, and Caroline on Broadway. And, you know, New York started the careers of Jerry Seinfeld, Amy Schumer, Dave Chappelle. You know, there's so many comedians. They go either to LA and New York, but most go to New York. And it's incredible to see the show. I've been to a fair amount in New York, and if you can get a chance to go, definitely go. And it's just really a fun evening in New York City.
Another really cool geeky museum is the Museum of the Moving Image in Queens, and it is dedicated to the art, history, and technology of film, television, and digital media. Their own description is really interesting, and I haven't been yet, but it's alluring. It says the Museum of Moving Image is the only museum in the U.S. that explores the central technology of the present moment. Screens are all around us. We use them to educate, entertain, and communicate. The moving image shapes how we see and feel the world. So it's an entire museum dedicated to movie, film, screen, something that dominates our lives. So it's a really cool little niche of the geekverse.
That sounds amazing. I gotta check that out too. I love it. I love this research.
That's the problem with this show. Every time we do the show, I have 100 things I need to do the next time I go out.
Well, I definitely remember the first few times that I went to New York City. Everywhere I looked, I felt like I was in a TV or movie setting. Because so many of our films and so many of our TV shows are filmed there. I remember the first time I actually took Tanya to New York, we intentionally chased down some iconic locations. So I have to give just kind of a rapid fire some spots to see, depending on your fandoms and your appreciations. And I think even if I'm not mentioning your specific, it'll give you the inspiration to look for other ones. So for instance, Tanya and I are huge fans of the film You Got Mail. A lot of it is filmed in the Upper West Side. We went to Cafe Lola, which was the iconic first blind date that they go on. We went to Riverside Park, where they find each other at the end and have their moment of I knew it was going to be you. So yeah, spoilers. That's a new movie. There's iconic locations like even Grand Central Terminal, where people remember the alien invasion from Avengers. There's F.A. Schwartz, which had the iconic Tom Hanks dancing on the giant piano playing chopsticks. Or if you're a fan of Home Alone 2, the New York one, that was where Duncan's Toy Chest, the toy store that the two turtle doves were from. That was made after that. There's Radio City Hall and Rockefeller Center, where you can see the iconic skating rink, where Elf or Home Alone 2 are.
Don't forget in TV, the iconic restaurant that they always show the outside of from Seinfeld. That's Tom's Restaurant, and it's still there and still open at 2880 Broadway. Unfortunately,
I've been there.
The original Soup Nazi restaurant is closed. That one was on West 55th.
Yeah,
I never went there. Yeah.
Other iconic spots that I chased down, the Hook and Ladder 8, where the Ghostbusters films were originally framed after. You could go up to Lincoln Center Performing Arts, the fountain there from Moonstruck or Sweet Home Alabama. Central Park has tons of films. Even the Tavern on the Green in Central Park has Wall Street or Mr. Popper's Penguins. You could go to Wall Street and see the Charging Bull statue out front.
Yep.
Or Hitch or Sorcerer's Apprentices, or another favorite for mine that I went with Tanya was the American Museum of Natural History, where Night at the Museum is. I have to just give this one other story shout out before we jump into our guest, but I had this incredible experience that I'll talk about more as we go into restaurants, but I actually had a film crew follow me for about a month, following around New York. So we'll have some more iconic places and foods and things to see. But before we get into that, we got to invite our special guest, our consultant from New York and New York area, our friend Emerson Matsuuchi. For anyone who doesn't know him, let me just give him a little shout out. He is not a bragger, so I'm going to brag on his behalf. He is the notable designer of the Golden Geek winning Century Spice Road, which actually inspired a franchise of games, including even an alternate reality. He also made Foundations of Rome, one of the best sellers for Arcade Wonders. One of his older games, Spectre Ops, was the first game that
that's one of my favorites.
That was one of my favorites in the genre of like a hidden movement. And recently was co-designer of Her Story with our friend of the show, Danielle Reynolds. And I just thank you, Emerson, for being here with us to chat with us. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well.
Excellent. I have to share our origin story, and please correct me where I'm wrong, but I believe it was around 2017, I think. We originally had the opportunity to work. We had known each other in passing before that.
Yeah.
I was
going to say, I knew you before 2017.
Yeah, we had hung out at conventions, and I'm a big fan of your work. And
likewise, yeah.
The beauty was at the time I was working for IDW, and they had some fun licenses. They had built some really great relationships, especially Jerry, my boss at the time, had really good connections with some notable licenses. And so I would go around and just talk to designers and ask them, what are your dream licenses? And thankfully, out of nowhere, out of all the IPs that could have been said, Emerson said to me, oh, well, my dream would be Metal Gear Solid. And he didn't know that was on my list of things to do. Find an amazing designer for this. And we had brainstormed even at IDW, who was our dream list of designers. And Emerson was on my list of people that we wanted to work with. And so it was a fun journey. It took a while since then to now. I hear good news. It's coming out finally.
Yeah, I'm hearing through the grapevine that there are some retail version, not the deluxe version, but some of the retail version copies have made it to some stores, it seems.
And who is the publisher? This
it is CMON. Sorry, come on.
It's hard to say it because we knew them at one time. They were CMON.
Yes.
Come on now. And
I didn't know that they wanted to be called Come On Now. Okay, cool.
That is their preferred.
I refuse.
Yeah.
The fun full circle was that Jerry, who was my boss at IDW, ended up going to CMON.
Yes.
And
did it again.
Sorry, come on. And because of that, was able to kind of save the project.
Yes.
And bring it out to reality. So full circle, we're very excited. And I can't wait to get my copy very soon, it sounds like.
Yeah, when Daryl, just to go back, when Daryl mentioned like the alternate reality, so I remember like not wanting to get Century Spice Road because I had already heard about Gollum. So I was waiting for Gollum to be available. And then I bought that one. And that's the one I play. 'Cause I love the sparkly gems.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that seems to be the more popular version.
Yeah, it's not because it was purely because of the components.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's same great gameplay. So it's just
Exactly.
people can choose the version that they prefer, which I just thought was a really fun experiment.
Yeah.
That a company was willing to do that. So I'll hit you with your first question, Emerson. Tell us something fascinating about New York that we don't know.
So I'm probably the worst New Yorker when it comes to like little facts, but I'll tell you something that I probably just found out just a few years ago.
Okay.
So I lived in Brooklyn for a long time, but I didn't know that Brooklyn at one point it was actually called Kings. So the same way that we have Queens, New York,
that's
it was
awesome.
actually called Kings.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that.
it's still known as, so in official documents and paperwork, it's still known as Kings County.
Really?
Yeah, and I didn't know this until doing like paperwork and things like that. So then I realized, wait, why is it called Kings County? So, but yeah, I looked up the history. Brooklyn was once called Kings.
Oh,
But
I love it.
they haven't officially changed it for whatever reason. It's like the
So I
public?
still see Kings County, and I believe if you go far back enough, New York City was I think it was just Manhattan basically, with some of the outer boroughs, just kind of like villages, very sparsely populated. And Brooklyn, as it became big, it was actually its own city for a little while, classified as a city for a time.
Yeah, I'd heard that.
So that's what I heard. So
that's interesting.
Like I said, I'm not super knowledgeable about New York history.
Yeah, that's interesting though.
I love that. Just before Beneeta asked her question, I heard this fun fact, and I'm curious if anyone on the show has heard this. But before the city was known as the Big Apple, does anyone know what food it used to be called? The Big Oyster.
What?
Yeah, there was legend early on that New York's waters was infested with the best oysters, and the legend became so big. This is, early settlement times, that the legend was that the oysters were as big as your head, and people would come across from Europe looking forward to having a big oyster, and that was New York.
Wow,
that's amazing.
Probably
it was a super popular food back then.
So we could have just been calling it, I'm headed up to New York this weekend. The Big Oyster.
The Big Oyster.
The Big Oyster. So, okay, Emerson, my question for you is that, New Yorkers sometimes have a certain reputation. And I wanted to know, do you have a favorite or funniest, like, New Yorker story?
Oh, New Yorker story. I think you guys have mentioned a lot of movies take place in New York. So it is actually not uncommon. So back in my 20s, a long time ago, I actually lived on the Upper West Side. So I'm very familiar with like Cafe Lalo and all those places. But it was actually really common to just bump into celebrities, just see them walking down the street. I remember coming home from work, getting out of the subway, and this was very late at night. I used to work the wee hours, so very late at night, and there would be these lights on the sidewalk, and it seems like there was like some film crew, and there's a couple of gentlemen just sitting down on the Central Park bench, just having a conversation, a cup of coffee. And it's only later that I recognized, wait, I've seen them in TV shows and in movies. So, and that seems to be a very, very common occurrence. And one of my favorite one was I was at a restaurant called Serendipity, which is also featured in another movie. That my friends and I, again, I was in my 20s, that we were just waiting for a table, and it was jam packed, and I mean jam packed as in it was shoulder to shoulder in that restaurant, in just like waiting in that queue. And as people were coming out, we had to sort of clear a way for them to come out. It was the winter time. No one wanted to wait outside, so we're all crammed inside. And I was situated where I was facing my friend towards a wall, so I couldn't see the people that were walking past me. But I did notice that there were some people that were looking at a particular individual passing behind me. And that person, we were all kind of so jam-packed. We were kind of touching each other, so I could feel the people going past me. And then my friend looked at me and says, "You know who just touched you? That was Jennifer Love Hewitt."
Oh, okay.
Amazing. Why didn't you
Yeah.
tell me?
It's amazing. I grew up in New Jersey, right outside of New York, and I used to do midnight movies in New York City at Strange Movies, Strange Theaters, and there was a little group that would go. And I only learned later that Bob Dylan's son was in the group as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Small
That is
world.
such a Corey story.
All right. So, question for you.
Mhm.
Have you already done or thought about doing a board game based on New York? You've been living there for so long, and New York has such an iconic feel.
Oh, many, many, many times.
I figured this was a gimme.
Yes. So I know some of you that know some of my designs know that Foundations of Rome was actually my seventh city building game. So I've actually had many games, and coincidentally, Reef that you see back there,
Mhm.
that was actually City 6. I'm not very creative with numbering or creative with naming the game. So I just put, okay, this is the theme, and here's the numbered iteration. So
Love it.
I've
That's
had
funny.
many times that I've
I kind of wish you would have named them all City 1, City 2,
I know.
City 3.
You're also not the first designer I've heard to do this. For a long time, Alan Moon did the same thing. He would just have the same common name with a number. And also, I heard Stefan Feld for the longest time would always do project manager and a number.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Wild.
So Alan Moon had something like Train 1, Train 2.
It was like I'm trying to remember. It was something like I want to say like White Lightning or something. It was like I don't remember, like whatever it was. It was just like, or like, the Pony Express or
That's
something. It was
pretty
like
weird.
train-like, but it was like adjacent, and he just named everything that. I have to ask him again.
Yeah, I do that because I had a programming background, and sometimes like I would be a little lazy about like always committing my changes to the version control system. So sometimes I would just save the local copy because it's experimental, and I would just number them. So I just got so used to just numbering things. That's why I constantly do it.
I love it.
All my prototypes always have a number attached to them.
That's
It
great.
works.
All right. Well, I mean, as the show, we focus on, a variety of things. And one of them coming up, obviously, we'll be talking about restaurants. We're curious, do you have any go-to restaurants in the city that you recommend to people, or just, they're special to you?
Oh, okay. I mean, Serendipity was definitely special to me, not because of the movie. It was like the place where I took my wife to our first date. So that was,
Aw.
Love that.
I took her there. It's a great little restaurant.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it. But one of my favorite places. So talking about Cafe Lalo, that place is always super busy.
Yeah.
So, but what I found another place that was fairly close by. So it's not too far from Cafe Lalo. It's a place called the French Roast on the Upper West Side.
Okay.
And they have a fantastic set of desserts, and I highly recommend their creme brulee, but they don't always have it. But it is fantastic. Their food is great as well. They're open incredibly late.
Cool.
Sometimes going out at 1:30 in the morning, you can get a
That sounds
great
like
place to eat. They're open very late.
I want a creme brulee. You said my favorite. It's my favorite dessert.
So it's on 85th Street, and it's on the corner of 85th and Broadway. It's great.
Okay. Love it. Love that. Great suggestion.
So Emerson, what is like your favorite site in New York City? And like additional to that, like if a friend was visiting you, where would you take them? And like, don't talk about, I mean, you can talk about whatever you want, but like if like something like unique, like, I'm going to go into like, Times Square and stuff very shortly.
Right. I mean, the first answer that popped into my head was Central Park, right? But I think that's such that's a little too, that's too common, I would say. So I would go with something a little bit more uncommon. So, and that's the Uncommons, which is
cool.
Yeah, nice.
Thompson Street. So very close to like the NYU campus down there, and it's close to Washington Square, or maybe it's in Washington Square. But it's one of the first board game cafes that opened up, as far as I know. And
That's cool.
It's a great place. They have a great selection of games.
Yep.
And I've been there quite a few times. And in fact, when I have friends that visit, sometimes we would just go to the Uncommons to just hang out.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's surprising how many games they could fit in that small little space.
Do they have all of your games?
Every nook.
I believe they have most of them because I kind of forced it on them.
Like, here's my games for your
Oh, you're
collection.
such a bully, Emerson.
I know.
Hey, they got
Oh man.
That's
Well,
great.
thank you so much for answering our questions and withstanding our gauntlet of attack. We're going to go ahead and put you back in the green room. We've got all sorts of snacks for you, and true to your rider, we have them separated by color and then shape. So
Are they numbered, though?
we will, and numbered. They are numbered.
Yeah,
Food 1, food
just
2,
for you.
food 3, just for you. We'll bring you back again at the end of the show for a final question, so you can start worrying and panicking about that now. It will be on your permanent record. So,
We will see you soon.
so Beneeta, tell us about some sites and locations around New York City that you found fascinating.
So we've been saying it again and again. New York is huge. We are an hour plus podcast. We are not going to cover everything, but just generally, New York has 5 boroughs, and each of the boroughs have kind of like a unique distinction to itself. And some of the things that we talk about are going to be all over, but I wanted to give an overview of what the 5 are. So we got Manhattan. It's known for its iconic skyline. You have Central Park. You have like landmarks like Times Square and Wall Street. Then you also have Brooklyn, which is famous for its art scene, diverse neighborhoods, and you have the Brooklyn Bridge and Prospect Park. Then you have Queens, which is technically the largest borough by area. It's known for its diversity and landmarks like Citi Field and Flushing Meadows Corona Park. Then you have the Bronx, which is home to the Yankee Stadium, the Bronx Zoo, and it's the birthplace of hip hop. And then finally, you got Staten Island, which is known for the Staten Island Ferry, green spaces and suburban character. And I love watching Staten Island TikToks. If you don't know what that is, just go and figure it out because it's hilarious.
Staten Island gets a really bad rap, but most of the people in the tri-state area there, including myself in New Jersey, we talk pretty bad about Staten Island.
No, I wasn't even insulting Staten Island. There's this they pretend to be like a Staten Island like pastrami shop or like Italian deli shop, and they like interact with like fake customers coming in, and it's hilarious and it's so funny. Anyway, I don't remember the name of it, but you can find it on TikTok. Yeah. So let's talk about Times Square. I feel like that probably is like one of the number one like destinations when people go outside of Central Park. So there's another nickname for Times Square. It's also the crossroads of the world. It is a bustling commercial entertainment hub in Midtown Manhattan. You got neon billboards. You got all the characters along the streets. If you take a picture of them, you have to pay them. They will get aggressive if you don't. You have the Broadway theaters. You have just like it's like just constant energy. It's basically 24/7. It's where the iconic New Year's Eve ball drop is, where millions of people flock to experience this. So you got the big Hershey store, you got a toy store, it's huge. If you see a lot of New York movies from like the 90s and 2000s, I feel like there was always like a Times Square like scene in the movies.
Oh yeah.
So Central Park is huge because it's 843 acres. It's right in the heart of Manhattan. It's like an escape from the city's hustle and bustle. You got walking past, you got lakes, you have like the Bethesda Terrace, the Bow Bridge. You can go and have a picnic. You also have the Central Park Zoo. You can go on a horse-drawn carriage. There's outdoor concerts. There's so many different like vibes to Central Park that's definitely something that you shouldn't miss when you go visit, because it's so cool that you have this many acres inside such a bustling like metropolitan like city.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And then we had to talk about Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island. So, the Statue of Liberty is just an iconic symbol of freedom and hope in the New York harbor.
Technically in New Jersey.
You look
Sure.
nasty, New York. You look nasty.
Okay, I will allow that caveat, but I felt like you deserved to be in the New York show.
I just Jersey pride. Jersey
That's
pride.
fair. That's
Jersey
valid.
pride.
That's valid. If it was in Maryland, I would also have made that caveat. It is a symbol of America that's recognized worldwide. Ellis Island's Immigration Museum tells the story of millions of people who entered the U.S. through New York City. Just pro tip, if you would like to visit the Lady Liberty's crown, make sure you book tickets really early because those get booked way in advance.
And sometimes they close. Sometimes they don't let you up there if the weather's really bad.
Okay, good to know. And especially because Wicked is out in theaters right now, we have to talk about Broadway plays and musicals. So it's like Broadway is like known as the famous theater district in New York City. It has about like 41 theaters. It attracts millions of visitors annually. There's always so many plays going on. You also have off Broadway, which are like smaller productions, but a lot cheaper.
Off Broadway.
You got off Broadway. I have seen my number of Broadway plays. I see my number of off Broadway plays. I think they're all very cool, and they all offer like very unique things. A lot of off Broadway shows like have a more like intimate experience, which is also very cool. And then you have things like The Lion King, which is like one of the most fantastic, longest running plays. Like my favorite musical is probably Phantom of the Opera. I've seen Phantom of the Opera on Broadway, and it was an amazing experience. It's still running. Like that's how for like over like 20 or 30 years at this point. If you've never seen a Broadway musical, even if you don't like musicals, just go once. It'll change your life. It's so cool. And then we also have the Apollo Theater, which is, showcase a lot of entertainment in Harlem. It was like the debut of Billie Holiday, Lena Horne. It also featured legends such as Coltrane, Miles Davis, Aretha Franklin, Nat Cole, and B.B. King. So a lot of music and culture in New York City. But Daryl, tell us about the highlight and some of like the skyscraper view.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do anytime that I get to the city, especially like for say a New York Toy Fair, is Central Park is a great place to get away from the city while still being able to see the city. But another feature that was developed was the High Line. And it's this greenery elevated walk that you can actually walk through that's just south of the Javits Center. So it's actually a very close nearby area. And it just, again, it gives you this escape. It celebrates that New York is a very, even though it's so huge, it's a very walkable city. It's very much a culture of neighborhoods and a place where people, have everything at their fingertips. And so one of the hard things is...
The High Line is just so cool because it's actually built on top of an old railroad section.
Yeah, and so it's reclaimed, it's reimagined.
That's exactly it.
And so I think that's one of the beauties of New York is that every little inch is used in really creative ways. There's a lot of innovation, but there's also just a lot of anything you want to find, you can find it somewhere. And so I think this urban oasis amongst, a very industrial history is something that I think really illustrates kind of like what New York is. Like the modern New York is more than the stereotypes. It's this diversity of experiences.
Another another place that you can go visit that is not as popular is Little Island. It is a little whimsical park that's floating on the Hudson River, and it just offers people a really unique blend of nature, art, and you can see like the stunning views of Manhattan from Little Island. So I've actually never been, but when I was doing research, it sounded like something that I definitely want to go see next time because I feel like it wouldn't be as crowded as Times Square, but like to get that like picture of like the skyline, it sounds really cool. But speaking about art, New York has so many cool art museums. You have the Met, which is the Metropolitan Museum of Art. You got the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA. You have the Guggenheim, and you have so many more, but those are like the big three art museums. I personally really love MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art. It is such a cool experience going in. I really like, that's one of my favorite art museums in New York.
I like the Guggenheim a lot just because of the structure of the building fits with this aesthetic of modern bizarre art. It's this ascending spiral. It's just a gorgeous building. Also in the city, Carnegie Hall is a super famous. Everybody has heard of Carnegie Hall. Everybody knows the old joke: how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Carnegie Hall originally opened in April 1891, seats 2,800 people, and it is an amazing, iconic orchestral theater. It's a personal one for me because I would go with my father every year on New Year's Eve to Carnegie Hall. There was a concert by this composer named Peter Schickele, who had made up a completely fictional um, Renaissance musician called P.D.Q. Bach, the very last of the sons of Johann Sebastian Bach. And it was just nerdy musical comedy is what it was. But it was in Carnegie Hall, and it was an absolutely amazing experience. So if you get a chance to go see it, it's such a cool place.
And then last but not least, we wanted to point out some really iconic New York hotels. So one of them is the Plaza, which is on Fifth Avenue. And it's just like a really iconic luxury hotel, which has like world-class dining. It's very pretty inside. It's been featured in movies, like for example, like Home Alone 2. One of the highlights of the Plaza is the Palm Court for afternoon tea and its proximity to Central Park.
Yeah, the Plaza also was at one point the tallest hotel in the world.
Oh, I did not know that.
And it
That's
got
cool.
replaced by a hotel in Moscow as the
Okay.
tallest in the world. It's an interesting little fact there. The other famous hotel is the Waldorf Astoria, both because it's a super fancy, famous hotel. A lot of movies and television shows, if they show someone going to a really snooty New York looking hotel, it's the Waldorf Astoria front door with the doorman. But the interesting fact is that Waldorf from the Muppets was named after the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. And in one episode of the Muppet Show, his wife actually came on, and her name, of course, was Astoria. And Waldorf's partner, Statler, was named after the Statler Hilton, which was another famous hotel in New York.
That's too funny.
I love that.
Weird and famous. The shout out, obviously, anyone who's seen our shows know I am Marriott Bonvoy obsessed, and I'm a loyalist. And so I gotta give a shout out to the St. Regis in New York, where I have not used any of my points to stay at, but I will one of these days. It's a beautiful, beautiful hotel located on East 55th Street. And it is considered one of the most beautiful hotels in the area. It has personal butler service and was originally founded in 1904. And in my opinion, it is kind of one of these timeless, elegant hotels. One of the highlights is that the King Cole Bar was known for inventing the Bloody Mary cocktail, which as a Canadian, I would suggest, if you just added some clam juice to that, that would be a beautiful Caesar.
There's always time for Caesar.
I had to work that in. I did not put that in our script so that I could sneak it in. But yeah, absolutely on the way to great innovation.
Okay, well, we're talking about the Bloody Mary cocktails and if you should or should not add clam juice. So, Corey, tell us about some food and drinks in New York City. The subject that all of us love talking about.
Bloody Mary, by the way, invented in 1934. So this was by far the most difficult section for us to plan.
Oh my gosh.
We all had additions. This section of our makeshift script as it is so huge. We kept adding and taking away and adding and taking away. And we are not going to cover all the famous restaurants in New York. But there's a couple big categories I think we have to throw out there.
For sure.
Very close to my heart, Jewish delis in New York. If you go to New York City, it's a crime if you don't visit at least one deli while you're there.
You'll make sounds like Sally if you're there, no?
So the most famous, of course, is Katz's Deli. It's been open since 1888, famous for sandwiches that are so ridiculously large that you will eat half and take half home, and you'll need extra bread. It's at 205 East Houston Street. It's so delicious.
I finally found, this was the picture. It's hard to see me in the middle back, but This picture did get on the wall at Cat's Deli for a bit as we all.
That's very
growled.
Oh, that's amazing, man.
So that was my when I was with the World Baseball Classic. We filmed in a bunch of different locations, including Cats.
Also have to throw out to Zabar's, which has turned kind of more a store grocery order center, but it also fits in that deli thing. Zabar's makes lox and pastrami lox. It's really amazing. Bagels, bread, rye bread since 1934.
I have a go-to that I have to give a shout out for. If we're talking delis, Cats is awesome. It's a must. But my secret spot, I don't know why I'm giving this away because now it's going to get busier because we have such impact on the world of tourism. But Barney's Greengrass, it was established back in 1908. It is my go-to deli where I make sure that I go every New York trip if I can. Emerson was mentioning the Upper West Side. And I think it's an underappreciated part of the city. And Barney's Greengrass is located up there where you can get anything you can imagine that's kind of traditional Jewish deli. They also have like a little bit of a grocery store side so that locals can just pick up and go. But they have it's such an iconic like old school vibe. The wallpaper, you can tell.
Oh, it's so good. They're famous.
Awesome.
They're famous for their smoked fish,
Yes.
especially sturgeon.
Oh, okay.
And that is one of my very favorites. Sure,
Well,
smoked salmon, lox, all that, but
Oh, yeah.
sturgeon is the best.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
So another huge category, you can't talk about New York without talking about pizza. And New York style pizza is known for being thin, being a little floppy. You have to fold it to eat it. It's a thing in and of itself. And people will get into fights.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a big
There's
topic.
fights about which city's pizza is the best.
Yeah.
And then even within New York, there's fights
Yep.
about which pizza place. And there's
Yeah.
so many cool stories.
Yep.
So probably the most famous one is Joe's Pizza since 1975. But it all started with...
It started with Lombardi's. So Lombardi's is credited with developing the New York style pizza and making it the first pizzeria ever in the United States. So this was around 1905. And look at that. You've been to Lombardi's. Like I've been to Lombardi's. It's fantastic. So it's known for its coal oven baked pizza. You got the smoky crust. You got the fresh mozzarella, the tomato sauce, and basil. So good. I remember having to wait in line for an hour. Worth it. I'll wait in line for pizza. Not a problem. But yeah, so you got Joe's that Corey mentioned. You got Lombardi's and Daryl. What else do you got there?
I'm going controversial here. Okay, I've been in this debate many times. I've had many fights with people, but there is one pizza place that I am loyal to. I love all the others, but nothing beats artichoke pizza, in my opinion.
Artichoke pizza's good. I agree. It's good. Is it better than
It's the
Lombardi's?
best New York pizza there. If you take
them's
green line,
fighting words, man.
and you exit the green line, you have walked onto the front steps of the beautiful Greenwich location, 111 MacDougal Street. Don't listen to anyone else. Walk straight in and have bliss. Make sure to order the artichoke pizza.
It's good. It's a really good pizza. You should definitely have it. But is it best?
There's another really famous one that I think is really cool, Ray's Pizza. And everybody knows Ray's Pizza, but the interesting thing is Ray's originally opened in 1959 by Ralph Cuomo, and it was at 27 Prince Street in Little Italy, appropriately. But there was so many little breaks where someone worked for Ray's and then moved out, or someone related to Ray moved out. And so now there are like 50 pizza places in New York, all called Ray's, and they're unrelated. Okay. They're not the same company. It's not a franchise.
They're all independent.
It just turned into the name for a pizza place in a large chunk of New York.
Yeah, absolutely.
So New York City is also really known for fine dining. And this was a really tough one to dive into because as of the latest count, there are 74 Michelin-starred restaurants in New York City. And we're not even counting really good restaurants that don't happen to be Michelin-starred, or restaurants that are recognized as Michelin quality but not starred. But there's 74 starred Michelin restaurants.
It's incredible.
Some of the really famous ones, there's 11 Madison Park, which is a 3-star vegan restaurant. Of course, Le Bourdonnais, which is 3-star. Absolutely amazing, elegant experience at La Bourdonnais, owned by Eric Ripert. And then a recent one that I have to give a shout out to is Jungsik, which is a 3-star Korean restaurant in New York.
Really
it
cool.
received its 3 stars just recently in 2024. And it's the first Korean restaurant outside of South Korea to earn Michelin stars.
Wow,
So,
that's
gotta go
really
there.
cool. I want to go there.
Absolutely fantastic. I want to go to all these places.
I know, right?
I love Korean food. Korean food is like, oh man, one of the best.
When are we going to South Korea? That's what I want to know.
I'm in. I have friends there, so
sure.
Let's go visit. I have to give a shout out, and especially because this was a place that I actually got to go with Emerson and our friend Zach Connolly. That I have to give a shout out. Thankfully, Emerson took me. I think I had mentioned to him that this was kind of a dream spot I wanted to go, and he surprised me. As he mentioned on the show, he is like crazy generous and takes me to these lovely dinners.
That's so awesome.
This was a time he surprised me and Zach, and we went to the greatest steakhouse of my life, Peter Luger.
Wow. Okay.
It lives up to the hype. It is known as the go-to steakhouse that every chef imaginable says you gotta go there. It was established in 1887. It is said that they have millions of dollars of meat in their meat locker on location.
Wow.
And this place, it not only does it make just an insane steak, but everything they do is so delicious. I remember the sides. And like there was like we had this like cream spinach.
Sitting drooling here.
I know.
The fries were done in like the beef fat. Like we tried a bit of everything. And I've heard, although we didn't do this, but I heard their burger is amazing. So even not only is their steaks and they do lamb, but their burgers are exceptional. And I know it is the go-to place. It was originally called Carl Luger's Cafe, Billiards, and Bowling Alley, which is a fun fact. Corey, you found that. And,
it tickled me.
And it is such a must-go-to place. The other that I'll give a shout-out to, just because of getting to go personally, I went with Erica Boyaris, friend of the show, designer for Spin Master, and when we were visiting her headquarters at Spin Master, we went to a place called Oxo Moco. It's a Mexican 1-star Michelin star restaurant, and it was phenomenal. Very cool vibe. So I just, of the 74 and how do you pick, I had to give a shout out to 2 that I personally experienced that I loved.
That is so cool. We've also got so many different kinds of food in New York. It was one of our interesting facts at the beginning of the show that we didn't get a chance to talk about is it is the most diverse city. New York City has more than 800 spoken languages. It boasts more diversity than any other city. But one of the neat little nooks that we have in New York is Sylvia's Queen of Soul Food. This is a soul food restaurant originally started in 1962. It has become known as the soul food restaurant. Everything else is compared to Sylvia's. It's at 328 Malcolm X Boulevard between 126th and 127th in Harlem. And if you haven't had good soul food, it is an experience. It is so amazing.
So we talked about some really fancy foods. So we're going to tone it down a little bit. New York has carts everywhere. And my absolute favorite cart place is called Halal Guys. The original, like you can find it everywhere now in New York, but the original was on 53rd and 6th. It is like serving chicken, gyro, falafel platters. It's halal food since 1990.
So good.
But what makes it so iconic is they have a red sauce and they have a white sauce. That's what it's called. Red sauce, white sauce. I don't know what the white sauce is made of. They won't tell anyone. You can look at the ingredients. It still doesn't tell you. And the red sauce is one of the spiciest sauces, but still flavorful sauces. And you tell them how many. Yeah, I love my spice. And you tell them how many lines. Like most people will get like 1 line of red sauce. I like 5 lines of red sauce and then extra red sauce packets. It's really good. I remember, and the thing is, it has spread along the East Coast a little bit in the last like 5 years. But for a really long time, the only place that you could get it was in New York. And I grew up in Maryland. One time in college, my friends and I, for some reason, were like, we're really craving halal, guys. Because I used to go up to New York semi-frequently with friends on every few months. And so we got in my car. And this was like 10 p.m. We drove up because Halal Guys is open 24/7, or it was open until like 4 a.m. or something. So we would just make it in time. We drove up. We got like a bunch of Halal Guys, and we drove back home because we all had class in the morning. So,
oh man,
it was a round trip to New York. Mind you, it was like 4.5 hour trip. Now, was it worth it? Yes. Would I do it again? No. Well, but I was 19 years old, and that seemed like a
too
good
old
use
for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
Well,
but it was great, and it was just, I love Halal Guys. And if you all haven't had it, you should try it.
We couldn't really have a Nerdabout show without talking about hot dogs. I don't know what it is. We always go around and we talk about hot dogs. And New York, you can't talk about hot dogs without talking about Nathan's famous hot dogs. It is a foundational part of Coney Island. It is the basis of the hot dog eating championships, originally founded in 1916. The original Nathan's restaurant was at the corner of Surf and Stillwell on Coney Island. And they're good. They're very good. There's a reason they're still around. It is a great classic hot dog.
They're a go-to. I'll also give a shout out to Gray's Papaya. That's just like cheap New York hot dog. You get a papaya drink. I don't know. I just think it's like a really iconic experience for me. I feel like I'm in New York when I get that.
Now, you know about dirty water dogs, right?
No.
It's you get a different hot dog if you get a fresh one that they just heated up, or if you get one at the end of the batch that's been in the water all day.
No.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. And then what about desserts, Corey? We got to end.
Absolutely. So New York's known for a couple famous desserts. One of the big ones is the New York style cheesecake, which it was not invented at this place. The New York style cheesecake was originally invented by Arnold Rubin, the owner of Rubin's Restaurant and Delicatessen and the Turf Restaurant in the 1920s. But the place that made New York cheesecake famous is Junior's. Junior's is at 386 Flatbush Avenue Extension at the corner of DeKalb in Brooklyn. And their cheesecake is the gold standard New York cheesecake. Junior's Diner. It's a great little place.
I check it out.
It's been there since 1929. Although it was only called Junior's in 1950, it's been there since 29.
Okay. Well, my go-to dessert, I'm not as expert as you, Corey. I understand. And I'm surprised we haven't hit an ice cream yet, but I'm sure that it's coming. But
I live for ice cream.
Yeah, I know. We will end there for sure. But Levian Bakery is, in my opinion, the best cookie. Good. I love it. I usually try to either grab a cookie and then swing by the American Museum of Natural History, or even, in front of the museum, go to Central Park. And that is just like peace and serenity, just sitting by the water with a good cookie. That also is a pretty iconic New York experience for me. But before Corey gets us all hungry for ice cream, Beneeta, what's your go-to?
You said cookie, and Levian Bakery is an amazing cookie. But have you ever had the cookie shot that's filled with milk from Dominique Ensel's Bakery? Oh, that's so good too.
Also good.
But I don't want to talk about that one. I want to talk about Magnolia Bakery. That is my number one dessert spot in New York City. And it's not because of the cupcakes. And I know cupcakes became popular
that
because
was their
of the
initial.
city.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my favorite is the best banana pudding I've ever had in my life. It is just creamy vanilla pudding layers with vanilla wafers and fresh bananas. And I think they even like now deliver, like because it's 2024 and everything gets delivered.
Okay.
But if you've never had Magnolia's banana pudding, like it will change your life.
Okay.
That's how good it is. I literally will make a stop every time I go. It is so good.
I have it on good authority that if you fly first class on United, they give you a Magnolia Bakery banana pudding.
What?
But let's talk about ice cream.
Okay. Hit us with the ice cream pad.
So
where's the go-to spot?
I love ice cream. I really love ice cream, and I like weird flavors of ice cream. So the king of weird ice cream flavors is Max and Mina's in Flushing in Brooklyn, and it's at 7126 Main Street. It was voted the number one of the top 10 unique ice cream parlors in America.
What?
And they have flavors that include lox, Cajun,
I would try
purple
this.
mint chip, beer ice cream, malt ice cream.
I'll try all of these. That sounds amazing.
You know what?
It
I grew
is-
up
oh,
with
I
green
would
eggs
live
and
with that.
ham, and I'll try it, but I gotta say, the idea of lox ice cream is very different.
I've had pastrami ice cream. I've had
Yeah? How'd you
egg
like it?
ice cream. Oh, I love it. One of my favorites I had recently, I had turkey stuffing with cranberry sauce ice cream that had a spicy sausage in it. It was so good.
I mean,
Wow.
I'll take your word. I'll take your
Yeah.
word for it. On that note, we are going to invite our guest back.
Hello, Emerson.
Welcome back,
Hi.
Emerson.
Oh,
I missed you, Emerson.
Yeah, we missed you. Hopefully, the numbered candies in the back room satisfied you while you heard us talking about foods. Any corrections or seconds? Anything that you think are iconic New York experiences that we hit on or missed?
no, I'm glad you hit up on Grace Papaya. That was my go-to place.
There you go.
I would say that is, out of all the restaurants that I've been to, I've probably been to Grace Papaya the most.
Right.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Because they had if you remember, they had the recession special. So,
Yes.
And it's, so when I first came to New York, they just raised the price from 25 cents to 50 cents for a hot dog.
Ooh,
And
Wow.
people were outraged.
outright.
Well, it was double.
Yeah. Well, I love when you go. You just see all these signs, like neon signs with like marker of like this drink, best Frankfurter of your life. Like, add the drink for $1. Add this for $1. Like,
Yeah. I do have
I can
another,
picture the building right in my head.
recommendation.
Yeah.
So I have another cheesecake recommendation.
oh,
Ooh.
please hit us.
which
Yeah.
is, Carnegie Deli is also another
Yes.
I've been to quite a few times for their cheesecakes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So I
Great.
think their quality is as good as Junior's. You know, they're all amazing cheesecakes, right? But there was a certain richness to the Carnegie cheesecake. It was super rich, very, very dense. So if you like to just feel
Yes.
full on a slice of cheesecake, I would highly recommend.
All right. You know what I might do? And unfortunately, Emerson, you won't be able to enjoy this perk unless you want to just randomly fly out for this. But my mom is a trained chef, and she makes incredible cheesecakes. I will ask her to make. I'm going to see Corey and Beneeta soon. So I'm gonna put my mom up there with greatest cheesecake makers. She has done auctions where her cheesecakes have gone for over $100 a piece.
Wow.
So usually she does them for charities, but I think she'll do me a favor.
It's a charity of my stomach.
Right, charity of our stomach. I will put it out there. I'm honestly not a huge cheesecake fan, so the irony was like my mom makes these awesome cheesecakes, and I'd be like, meh.
That's
Whatever.
amazing.
But I think
That's
I was
amazing.
made that way to irritate my mom because then she was like, something that I was like,
You know-
I'd rather papaya.
I'm so excited we did this episode because my cousin recently moved to New York to go to college. So I have now even more reasons to go to New York. So I will be coming back to this script later in a few months, being like, okay, what restaurants do I gotta go to this weekend?
That's it. We got to sell our scripts as travel guides now.
Right,
I
travel
know,
guides.
they're so good.
Nerdabout guys will be coming soon. So on to our final question. I'm gonna give you, Emerson, the most time to think about it. So we'll start with Beneeta. I'll go next, then Corey, then we'll go to you, Emerson. But the question is, what is your favorite city building game? And I will preface with, Emerson, you can't pick one of your city building games. So you're not allowed, but maybe we will.
But I'm allowed, and I promise.
Are you picking? Is that where you're starting, Beneeta?
I'm picking. Yes, I'm allowed, and I promise this is just me like buttering up Emerson. But my pick is Foundations of Rome, which is an Emerson Matsuuchi game. So this game is a city building game. Everyone has the same buildings. The buildings do different things. You're putting it out. You're all together collectively building the city of Rome, but you are competing against each other. And where you build buildings, you can use other people's buildings to gain points. You want to increase your population, but you also want to increase your income. It's really fun. It gets really chaotic when you have a lot of buildings out. I have the Foundations of Rome, which is a very spectacular production, and you can see how much care and thought Arcane Wonders put in it because the setup for this game is 5 minutes, which is great. If you don't want to drop a substantial amount of money, they just recently came out with Foundations of Metropolis. Same game, but you have nice cardboard pieces instead of plastic pieces. I'm very happy with my Foundations of Rome copy, but I'm a bougie girly, so you know.
Beneeta, I feel like you've sold or demoed this a few times.
Yeah, maybe.
It's such a good game.
She knows it well. So
I know well.
I'm gonna not explain this game as well as Beneeta did, but it is my personal favorite is Underwater Cities. I think it has this just a nice enough element of like Euro-y crunchiness, and I love worker placement, but I love this idea of you have action cards. And you ideally would like to combo those with the cards and the actions you want to take, but you're constantly being tempted away from your original plan because of the cards that you have. And because you want to synergize and maximize those, you get off track and you try to combo the right thing, and people get in your way because of worker placements are great that way. And that's why I love Underwater Cities. I regularly lose and have a glorious because I'm just so tempted by the cards that come up, and I just feel like it's constantly just this idea of little combos, and so that
it's a gorgeous game.
Very rewarding.
Yeah,
classic Vladimir Sushi. It's such a good.
Yeah, it's
title.
My favorite of Suchi's. Suchi is one of those designers that I will always try. Some run a little longer. Some don't maybe connect with me, but I understand and respect the choices that are presented. I know, Corey, you're in love with a big city builder right now.
Oh, it's a brand new one. My pick is Civolution from Stefan Feld. It is the new 4X Stefan Feld game, and it is a beast. It takes 3 or 4 hours. It is civilizations building, but also city building, resources, tribes. So many options.
It melts my brain. It's like
it does.
It's definitely like a few extra steps from like overrun. It's breaking me.
Daryl and I played a prototype 2 years ago.
Yep,
so
I did
I imagine it's changed by now. So I want to play it.
It's cleaner and streamlined, and the components are really beautiful. A lot of double layered boards, a lot of places to put things.
I want it.
It's well done,
really
but
nice.
it hits that itch just perfect. It's got lots of civ building, city building elements that all go together.
You got me excited about it, Corey. I want to try it.
All right, Emerson, did we buy you enough time to give your answer?
Yeah, actually, I think you gave me too much time because now I'm second guessing my.
You're allowed to give honorable mentions, so feel
Okay.
free to tell us your pick and any others that you
All
want to
right.
give a shout out.
So for me, it was always Acquire by Sid Sackson. That's always
Yep.
been
Nice.
very. I mean, you could clearly see the very overt influence it had on Foundation's.
Oh yeah,
Game.
building off the shoulders of greats.
Right, exactly. So I have to give a shout out to Acquire. But then you gave me enough time, and then I realized the city building game that I played by far the most is Machikoro, because I
Hey!
Oh,
played it with my
yeah.
family
Oh, that's so cool.
so much. My kids love this game. We got
Mhm.
the different versions. We got the expansions. We got
Yeah.
Machikoro Legacy. They're all
Nice.
fantastic. So we played that a lot. So I mean, I have the best memories there.
Oh yeah,
So
I've
yeah,
had some real
that
fun.
might have to be my pick.
Yeah,
So wait, I want to
Yeah.
tell my Machikoro story. So
Please.
when I got into games, it's been a few years now, but Machikoro is one of the first few, and like it feels a little bit similar to Catan, but a little bit friendlier. And I taught my cousin, who at the time I think was 13 years old. He's a boy. This is relevant because he loved it so much that I gifted him a copy, and then he started teaching all of his group of 13-year-old young boys, and they all got copies. And so I remember talking and because of him, I think 6 people got their own version of Machikoro. And I remember being to whoever was the marketing person at Pandasaurus, if there was ever a spike in the 13-year-old boy demographic, you're welcome.
I remember at a board game convention, someone had brought a fresh new copy of Machikoro from Japan, all with no English, and we played it, and it blew me away. It was such a good design.
Yeah.
So we have come to another ending of Nerdabout. So thank you again, Emerson, and let's everybody just say real quick where we can find you online, social media, and any other pitches that you want to throw out there.
Oh, okay. I'm really bad with social media, so it's just sort of my nature. I like to keep to myself. So, but I do have a Twitter, or it's now called X. So it's just at Nazca Games.
Perfect.
And I think that's probably the best way to reach out to me is through there.
What's the handle, Emerson? I think you cut off for a second.
Oh, okay. It's just at Nazca Games.
Okay, gotcha.
Awesome. I can be found on YouTube at Aboveboard TV, dicetowerdish.com, boardgameinsider.com. I am Dice Tower Dish on Twitter. I'm pretty easy to find out there.
Yeah, you can find me usually on all these social medias: Instagram, X, Facebook, and it's usually just my first and last name, Daryl Andrews.
And my name is Beneeta Kaur, and you can find me at Beneeta on every single platform. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We are going to be off next Tuesday because it is Christmas Eve. But come back, and we have a schedule, and we have a very exciting 2025 schedule. So we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.